Janome.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jess with So Many Creations. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this super simple last minute gift idea, this cute little chapstick holder. So you can see on this one, I have some embroidery. I'm using my Janome Skyline S9 and I'm going to show you how to do a really simple embroidery design. You can make these in really any size for any items that you need. They take probably about 15-20 minutes tops, so when you have somewhere to go and you need a last minute gift, this is going to be the perfect solution for you. I also like to have a few around so I can carry my chapstick or any of those things that I like to have close at hand, a little hand sanitizer, whatever it is that I need. So if you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe. You can also click the little notification bell and give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more like this. So let's get into it. So let's start by going over all of the supplies that we're going to need for today's project. Now, please keep in mind, this is a project that is made for cork or a light leather or vinyl, something that is non-fraying. And the reason is, when you look at the finished piece right here, these edges are raw edges. They are not finished. So if you wanted to do this out of fabric, you would have raw edges, and we don't want that. We don't want to see that fraying. This is a perfect project if you are new to cork, or if you are getting used to your embroidery machine, or if you want to try edge coat. Edge coat is the painting that you can do on the edges of your cork projects or your vinyl projects. It's a great way to practice some of your skills and to really, master the art of bag making, because once you've done something like this on a small scale, you are ready to make anything. So let's take a look at some of the things that I have here. These are just my samples here, and I'm going to go over with you how to properly measure for whatever you're using. I am going to be making a little hand sanitizer holder today, mostly because I found a really cool design that I liked, and this was a great project or a great piece to fit inside of that. So for this one, I made it a little bit smaller. It was for a chapstick holder, and this bird fit perfectly on here. You do not have to embroider this. Obviously, you can leave it plain. You can also play around with your stitches that are in your machine. Don't forget, we have tons of stitches that you can use and so many different thread and color options. So it's a really fun way to personalize some gifts or something for yourself. It's always okay to make yourself a present. Don't forget that. So let's look at some of the things that we're going to need for today. Since I am embroidering, I have my stabilizer right here as well as my embroidery hoop. This is for my Skyline S9. I will go over this a little bit more in the next step, but I have those pieces here with me today. That's really the only special thing I will need for embroidery. As far as my thread is concerned, I am using a 50 weight Aurifil cotton. This is what I'm going to be doing my embroidery design with today, this pretty aqua right here, but I'm also going to use it for my piecing. Now, normally I would bump up to at least a 40 weight for my bag piecing, but for today, for such a small project, this is absolutely fine. And this is the exact thread that I used in the top, and I also used some in the bobbin. Now, I know some of you are probably cringing right now. Why would you want to use this really expensive, pretty colored thread in your bobbin? Well, the reason is because I didn't remember to bring my white bobbin thread for embroidery. So it's just going to be a little bit of a different color and a pretty color on the back, but that's totally fine. So this is what I'll be using today. I also use the same Aurifil thread for this one right here for all of my stitching and my embroidery design. Some of the other things that I'm going to need is, of course, some clips and some scissors, and most importantly, I'm going to need my cork. And I'm going to go over this in just a minute so I can show you how to properly measure. I have a little swivel hook right here. I'm using a 1/2 inch swivel hook. This is a gunmetal color. You can see in these, I've also used a 1/2 inch. I used a 1/2 inch on this one. And on this one, I used a 1 inch. This was actually made for something a little bit heavier, so I wanted to have something a little bit larger. Use whatever you have on hand. If you have a 3/4 inch swivel hook, go for it. If you have a 1/2 or a 1 inch, you can use whatever you would like. It really doesn't matter. It's a great scrap buster. I also brought over my machine feet just so we can look at those really quickly, and I will go over those as we get into some of the steps. I have my P foot, which is for my embroidery, very important for that part. If you're skipping the embroidery, you don't need that. And I'm also going to use my 1/4 inch, which is my O foot, and my blind hem foot, which is my G foot. That's going to give me my 1/8 inch stitching. So you can see on here how beautiful and perfect my 1/8 inch and my 1/4 inch are. That's because of those feet. So those are really all the supplies that I have for today. Let's go over how to properly measure your object that you're going to make your holder for and what pieces you're going to need. So as I said, I am using today's project for a little hand sanitizer holder. I have these for chapstick. You can really make them for anything that you would like. Anything that you want to be able to access quickly, to hang in your bag or to put on your belt loop or wherever you would like it so that you always know it's nearby. I don't know about you, but hand sanitizer is usually close by and so is chapstick. I always have to know where that is. So how do we measure to make sure we have the proper pieces, and what pieces do we need? You'll see here I have two pieces that are the same size. I have a smaller one, that's going to be for my pocket, and I have my little strip right here, which is going to be for my swivel hook. So what I have done for my hand sanitizer for today is I roughly measured it. And when I say roughly, I'm just kind of eyeballing it on my mat, and I'm always going up to the next increment just because I'd rather it was a little bit bigger than a little bit too small, because if it's too small, my piece might not fit inside. So my hand sanitizer looks like it's about 2 inches wide. So I'm going to go with 2 inches for my width. And as far as my height is concerned, it's about 3 inches. Maybe it's a little bit shorter, but that's okay. So I'm going to make this easy on myself and use simple numbers. I'm going to go 2 inches wide and 3 inches high. So when it comes to my pieces here, this is going to be the back piece right here. So it's going to be the piece where the pocket sits. What I'm going to do with that is I'm going to add 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. How do I distinguish that? Well, when I'm looking at something like this, my chapstick, it smushes down. It's not overly thick. So for something like this, I'm just adding 1/2 of an inch. So whatever that measurement is, I will go 1/2 inch wider and 1/2 inch higher. For this, because it is a little bit on the thick side, I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch. And this is just kind of something that you determine as you go. Again, it depends on what it is that you're making it for. These do bend and flex a little bit. So if it's a little bit too big or a little too tight, your object will still go in and out just fine. But I would rather go a little on the larger side. So since this is 2 by 3, I have made my pieces here 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I have 2 of these. They're going to go back to back like so. That's going to be the front and the back of my holder. This piece right here, I'm actually not going to be using because I did embroider a piece, and I'm going to show you how I did that. But what I would do with this piece is I do the same width, so it's 2 3/4, but instead of the same height, because I want to be able to grab my hand sanitizer, I shortened it by 1 inch. So this is actually 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. Very simple. I'm going to list the measurements for you on the next screen. So if you want to pause the video and jot them down, it's a really simple way that you can measure your pieces. And lastly, for my hook, I have just measured whatever the inside of my hook is. This is 1/2 inch. So I've measured 1/2 inch wide, and I did 3 inches. I find that that's more than enough. If you want this longer, you can always make it longer. And as far as shorter is concerned, you can always tuck it further in when you're sewing. So that really doesn't make much of a difference. I like to do the 3 inches. I find that that's a good measurement when it's all done, and it seems to work really well. So let me put those measurements up for you. So I've gone ahead and grabbed my hoop. I also have a piece of stabilizer, and I have my cork right here and my scissors. So I'm going to get this prepared so I can take it over to the machine and start my embroidery. I've already loosened the screw down here, and I'm just gonna pop the center out. This hoop is the SQ14. This came with my embroidery machine, and since it's a small size, it's a small project, it just works really well. So I've taken that out. I'm going to take my stabilizer here. And let's just talk for a second about stabilizers. What I have found over the few years that I have been embroidering on cork is that I really like this one. This is the Floriani Perfect Stick. Do you have to use this one? Absolutely not. But here's a couple of things I like about this particular stabilizer. It is a tearaway stabilizer. So you can see that's right here on the other side. But on the back side is paper, and it is self-stick underneath here. That's why it's called Perfect Stick. So for a cork project, I really can't hoop the cork because it's kind of thick and it's not going to go into the hoop correctly. So what I want to do is hoop my stabilizer and then place my cork on. If I don't have something that is a self-adhesive, I would have to get a spray-based, or I would have to, you know, really make sure that that cork is stuck on there somehow. So instead of having to do some extra steps, I like this one. I think it just makes things a lot easier. So I've already cut this a little bit larger than the opening of my hoop. I'm going to place it on here. Now this is a little bit thick because it has the paper, so sometimes it takes just a second to get it in place. What I find is that if I push the top in first, I can kind of work my way down and push both of the other bottom corners in, get that nice and snug in here. I don't want it too loose. All right, that feels pretty good. So now that that's in there, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten up that screw. And then I'm gonna take the paper off. Now I'm not concerned about what's sticking out on the corners. I'm only concerned about this part right here where my cork is gonna go. So I grab my sharp scissors. You can also use a pin if you would prefer, or a seam ripper. But what you wanna do is be gentle, because you only want to score the paper. You don't wanna go through the stabilizer. So I'm just lightly scoring in an X. And then I also like to go around the edges, just very lightly. And then since there's a bubble here, which there always is, I'll kind of get my scissors underneath there and just get that started. Just got to be able to get my fingernail in there. And once I have that done, now I can take off the paper. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't let embroidery intimidate you. It's really not hard to do at all. And if I can do it, you can do it. So I'm just gonna peel this off. I'm not gonna worry about every single little piece in the corner. I did the best that I could. I'll set that aside. All right, make sure that this is nice and taut. All right, so now I'm gonna take my little scrap of cork here and just place that right in the center, push that down, and it's stuck because it has the sticky on that side. So I didn't have to spray base, I didn't have to do anything special. Did I perfectly center and cut my cork? No, I did not. I'm kind of a go with the flow kind of girl when it comes to embroidery, and I'm still learning. So I'm just doing the best that I can here. I know that this piece is more than big enough for the front little pocket part of the chapstick holder, so I'm totally fine. So now that this is in place, I'm gonna head over to the machine and show you how to get that prepared. I'm gonna do a simple monogram today, just because this is for me to carry in my purse. Today I'm going to be using my Janome Skyline S9. I have already taken my machine and pulled it as far forward as I can, because I do need to open the back part for the embroidery, and I just want to make sure that it's not going to be disrupted by the wall that's behind me. I put my embroidery foot on, my P foot right here, and I already have a bobbin and a top thread. Now normally when I embroider, I would be using some embroidery bobbin thread, which is just a thinner white thread. Today, I don't have that with me, and I had a bobbin with some leftover color that I'm probably not going to use, so I just threw that in there. Normally, I wouldn't do that, but it's all right. So my machine is in sewing mode. It is not ready for embroidery just yet, and it went to sleep. So what I'm going to do first is around on the back side here, there's a little lever. I'm going to push that down and open the arm here. So now my embroidery unit is ready to go in the back. What I do need to do is change over from sewing mode to embroidery. So I'm just going to press this button right here. This is the second one. It has 2 machines on it. Once I hit that, it's going to tell me that it's switching to embroidery mode, make sure I have the proper foot on, make sure that the carriage is ready. So I'm going to say okay, and now it's going to move around a little bit and get itself situated. And instead of going to the monograms, I'm actually going to go to the embroidery designs, which is a little flower. And once I get into there, I can look at all of these different designs that are here. I can go through and pick what I want. I was looking earlier and I decided that I want to go with this really simple, the Hannah style character designs, and I'm just going to click that. And my first name is Jessica, so I'm going to go with a J, and I'm just going to grab that J right here. It's going to tell me to keep my hands clear because the hoop's going to move. Now, I have not put my hoop on yet, but I'm going to just say okay. It's telling me right here it wants the SQ14 hoop, which is what I prepared. I'm going to say okay, and I will go ahead and put my hoop on. So since my hoop is all ready to go, I need to take this piece right here, this little screw that turns, and put that onto the carriage unit. So I'm just going to put this like so. If I have to lift my foot up, I can, but it's in perfect position. Bring that to the back. It's going to click in, and then I'm going to turn the screw once it's in place, clockwise, to make sure that it's secure and now it's not going anywhere. So again, I have my thread and my bobbin already. For thread today, I'm just using the Aurifil cotton thread in a pretty turquoise color. It's a 50 weight. I've been embroidering with that for a while and I really like how it looks. So now that this is done, I'm taking a look at the size here. It's telling me that it's 2.4 by 2.1 inches, which is absolutely perfect. I have the correct hoop on. It's gonna take me 5 minutes and I think I'm ready to go. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and start this. Now I've unplugged my foot because I'm gonna be using the start stop button and then the foot won't be in the way. So what I like to do is hold this thread for just a couple seconds, hit the start stop button, let it do a couple stitches, stop it, trim it, and then I let it do its work. So let's go ahead. All right, my design is all done. It's gone ahead and cut that thread. So now I'm gonna take it off of my machine. I'm just gonna turn that screw. There we go. And very gently slide that off. And there is my really cool design. So now I can head over to the cutting table, trim this down to size, grab my other pieces, and I'll show you how to complete this project. So my piece is all embroidered. I took it off of the hoop. So I detached the hoop from the carriage and then I took my piece off, and I haven't done anything with it yet because I wanted to show you how this type of stabilizer works. I told you it was a self stick. So my cork is stuck on there really nicely. And all I'm going to do is just gently work around the edges and pull that off because it is a tearaway stabilizer. Now I told you I had to use some thread that I already had. I didn't have my white embroidery thread, so the back of my design is actually purple, and I think it looks kind of cool, but that doesn't matter for today. So I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna pull out a little bit of this inside here, as much as I can get. Honestly, I don't really worry too much about it because it's on the inside of a pocket. No one's ever gonna see it. So I'm just gonna try to get some of this off. It sticks really well. So I'll just try to get this big piece out. And if it doesn't want to come out, that's okay too. All right, so there we go. So now my piece is set. I can get rid of this. A lot of people do save these pieces and reuse them. You can kind of patch them together. I'm not going to do that. I can't tell you that I will. I'm one of those people that just uses it and throws it in the trash. Please don't be upset with me. So I have my piece here. I'm going to turn this over. It got a little skewed just from me pulling it out of the hoop, and I can iron it. It's the great thing about cork is that I can actually press this and it's not going to hurt anything. I can press it from either side. I can use my pressing clapper. I can straighten this out as much as I want to. What I'm going to do for now is not worry about that. I will take it over when I'm all set. And I'm going to now measure out the front pocket. So I have this piece that I had already trimmed, and I can use that to measure, and just like that, it's all trimmed. So now my piece is ready to go. So again, this piece was the 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. I have my front and my back here. This is my pocket, and I have my little swivel hook and the little tab. So this is really easy to put together. It's only going to take me a few minutes. I'm going to grab my clips right here. First thing I'm going to do is take this little tab and my swivel hook, and I'm just going to put it through just like this. Now I'm not doing anything special to this. If you want to add some stitching or a design to it, absolutely you can. For me, I'm just going to skip that. I'm going to turn one of my pieces over. This is going to be for the back. So I'm just eyeballing the center here. Again, if you want to measure, by all means, you can do that. I am just kind of winging it. And I'm going to clip that where I want it. I'm going to take my front piece and I'm going to put that right on here, just like that, and add a few clips. Now, sometimes if I don't have clips, or if I really want to make sure that nothing shifts, I will use my Gutermann HT2 glue. I don't have any with me today, but sometimes I will actually glue these pieces and heat set them, and then nothing shifts and it's even stronger. For today, I'm just going to use a few clips. So first thing I'm going to do is take this to my machine and sew 1/8 of an inch all the way around the outside. I have my G foot here. I'm going to use this to do my 1/8 inch sewing. I'm also going to top stitch the top of my pocket. I think that looks really nice. So I'm just going to stitch along the top of the J. Once those are done, I will put this on here. I will also stitch with the 1/8 inch and then I'll add a 1/4 inch if I like. So let's head over to the machine and I'll show you how I use these feet, especially the G foot, to get my perfect 1/8 inch stitching. So my machine is just about ready to go here. I went ahead and shut the carriage and put it back into sewing machine mode. I'm on my home screen for the sewing right now. I have attached my G foot, which is my blind hem foot, but I haven't threaded my needle or done anything else yet. So I grabbed my turquoise thread and I'm just going to go ahead and get this threaded. Really simple. And any chance that I get to show off how to use the needle threader makes me super happy. So I'm going to go ahead, get this threaded down to that last spot, lock it, and use my needle threader, and bam, just like that, it's done. And I can unlock. I have my bobbin in. I'm just using a natural colored bobbin that will look nice on the back of this. So I'm starting with my G foot because I want to do my 1/8 inch stitching first. So I'm going to go to stitch number 4. My stitch length is now at 2.4, but for top stitching, that's not quite long enough for me. So I'm going to increase this and I'm going to go to 3.5 for this one. I like a nice long top stitching length, and since I'm going through multiple layers of cork, I know that it's going to be just fine. First thing I'm going to do is top stitch right across the top edge of my J, and I've been using a different machine at home, so I keep trying to reach for the back to lower my foot. But there we go. So I am going to just take a stitch and then back stitch on this so it doesn't come out. And I just need to grab my scissors because I forgot to bring them over. Okay, got my scissors so I can just trim my threads here. I'm going to set this aside for a moment. So now I have my piece all ready to go. I have my front and back wrong sides together. I clipped it. I also have my swivel hook tucked down in here, and it's probably down about 1/2 inch or so. That way it's going to get caught when I do the 1/8 inch and the 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick a side to start on. It really doesn't matter which side. And again, I'm going to drop my foot and I'm going to adjust with my knee lift. Go forward a little bit. Take out my clip and I'm going to do a locking stitch. I like to do that to begin. So I'm just going to hit my locking stitch. All right. And then I'm going to just stitch up the side. Because I am using stitch number 4, my needle is over to 0.5. I could go all the way over even further to the left, but what that is doing is it's allowing me to get this really nice 1/8 inch stitching, and I'm using the guide in the middle of the foot to make sure that I stay nice and straight. Once I get to this corner, I will pivot. And if your pieces shift a little bit, it's really not the end of the world. You can always trim them. Don't worry about it. A little bit won't hurt anything. And remember, it's just a simple project. We don't need to stress too much about it. But if there's anything here that is bugging you, just trim it. And I'm going to turn the corner one more time, take a stitch, and do my locking stitch. I'm also using the automatic lift, which is the button right here on my machine. And of course I use my scissors all the time, and these scissors. It just makes sewing better. Trim my little threads. Now that is not a perfect corner, but that's okay because I'm going to put my little pocket right over the top of that. So I'm just going to clip that in place. I'm just setting the pocket right on the bottom, the opposite side of the swivel hook, lining up my edges, and now I'm just going to stitch 1/8 inch on the pocket. I like to do them separately because I find that nothing shifts then. If you want to stack all 3 pieces and do them all at once, including the hook, absolutely go right ahead. I just like to make sure that I get the least amount of shifting. I know something's going to move, but if I can get a little less, I'm happier. My S9 is going through all of these layers of cork with no issues. That is why I love my Janomes. And do my locking stitch. And I can stop now if I want, but I really like adding the extra 1/4 of an inch. I think it looks really nice. It's gonna go over my embroidery design on this side, but that's okay. That's a risk I am willing to take. I really like how the double stitch looks. So I'm just gonna pop my foot off, move all of the things that I've put in my way, which I do constantly. And I'm keeping my foot away from the foot pedal because if I hit it, I'm gonna break my needle. So I'm going to go to my quilting stitches. I'm just gonna scroll over until I get, whoops, to right here, to stitch number 2 in the quilting, which is a 1/4 of an inch. But here's a couple of things that I like to do. I like a scant 1/4 of an inch when I do projects like this. So I'm gonna change it from 8.3 to 9. And because it's really set for quilting and for sewing a seam, it's set at a 1.8 stitch length. That's not gonna work for top stitching. So I'm gonna bump this up to 3.5 like I did before. Now I'm just gonna take one more go around, use my locking stitch, and just do a 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm done. All right, I'm all finished. Trim off my threads here. And let's go check and see if it fits. So I'm all set. I came back over here so that I could trim up some little things that had shifted. I had a little bit of shifting in one of the corners, so I just used my rotary cutter and just trimmed that away. You can't even tell which one, I bet. So now that this is all set, I can take my hand sanitizer and just tuck that right in here. And you see it's nice and snug. So I did go with the 3/4 inches on this. If I had gone with the 1/2 inch, I think the 1/4 inch stitching would have been too much and it wouldn't have fit. So again, for thicker objects, I always go a little bit bigger. And if it's a really thick object, you can even go a little larger than that. So I have my little holder here. I can hook this into my bag so that I always know where it is. Couple of things that I just wanted to mention again. If you are new to cork or new to bag making or any of these kinds of things, the techniques that we've used today, something like this is a great project to try out different things on. It's fun to work with your embroidery machine. You only need some scraps, and it's a great way to get to know where all of the buttons are and all of the designs and everything. It's also a fun way if you have gotten some fun new bag making tools. Maybe you just got a rivet setter. You could add a rivet here. That would keep your hook from moving around. You could also add some stitching here, which I did not do, but you could play around with that, use some fun hardware. You know, sometimes we get hardware and we don't know where we got it from, so it's hard to use it again or to use it on something when you have just that one piece left over. So you can add, you know, different swivel hooks. You can use whatever size you have, play around with your threads, play around with cork if you're new, but there's so many options. And don't we always have a birthday, a celebration, somewhere we need to go and we need a quick gift? I think these would be great for teachers' gifts, great for children to put in their backpacks to make sure they know where some of their supplies are. It's fun for Father's Day, Mother's Day, any holiday that you have. You can even make these and put a little gift card in them if you would like. Their options are endless. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Again, if you like it, please hit the subscribe button and also click the little notification bells to know when I upload. I do add new videos at least once a week, sometimes more. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. All of my information is at the end. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment. You can find me on my website, on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day.